Hey, Ben.
Hey, Anthony,
I hear we have something special to announce today.
which is why we didn't have a show this Monday, right?
That might be why. So let's get into what we're going to talk about today. Not we, Microsoft has a release candidate,
And now we
zero,
have a
for the.
release candidate because
Uh
Microsoft
huh.
has one, and since they don't keep it to themselves, they shared it with us. So now we have a release candidate. You get a
For
release candidate. You get a release candidate. Everybody gets a release candidate. We should get
yeah.
Oprah on this show.
So we have today, we're going to show some things around the release candidate, RC0, for SQL Server 2025. No,
Ba-ba-da-ba-da.
and that wasn't me in the audio, so just to say. I'm just saying.
I think
So
I mean this is episode 13. Now we can tell people that it's actually you singing that jingle.
It wasn't me. Oh man, yeah. That's my Fiverr account is. So we so as things move into release candidate, right? There you aren't going to see emerging or massive shifts in the product. Like this is fit and finish work, right? Where
Yep.
Microsoft is really kind of honing in on what the actual GA is going to look like. And so not to say that we don't have a lot to talk about because Ben and I can fill at least 17 or 18 minutes with nothing. But we're going to show you some of the
Oh, a
things
lot of
that
nothing.
uh-huh. Or similarity search to a vector of nothing. And so we have this a couple demos that I think Ben's put together that we're going to walk through today to kind of highlight kind of some interesting new concepts inside
Yep.
of SQL Server and a slight shift in one of the functionalities that we've looked at previously in the series here. So Ben, why don't you walk us through what you want to walk us through today?
Let's dive into the demo. Phew. Again, this is where we need this animation where we actually fly into the demo.
Hold on. Right here.
It's really the fact that we're on a budget makes me sad sometimes because we could have had
Wait,
Oprah, we could have had that amazing animation, but here we are with only the jingle that you were singing for us.
the
Anyways, let's
budget
take a look at the demo.
the budget is we have no budget, which
That's basically what I was saying.
yeah.
So select add version. There we go. Microsoft SQL Server 2025 RC0. Let me just do this. RC0. I mean, how cool is that? We've been
That's
waiting
hot.
for that for a bit, I was going to say. Let's start with what I did on all my previous demos. I'm going to create a new database. I'm going to call it RC demo. Enable REST API endpoints. Create a encryption key so we can store credentials and all that. All good. Let's start with some stuff that has not changed. So create external model Olama. Same thing as previously. I can access my Olama running in my on-prem model, and I can do my AI generate embeddings. BDC is the best, and it's going to generate me that embedding endpoint for that. Nothing new here.
Whilst
Nothing to see.
Well, whilst we're talking about BDC, Ben, a little shout out to Azure Data Studio on my T-shirt here. Back to the first
I saw
episode.
that, and I have to
Yeah,
say, it makes me so happy.
yeah, there we are. BDC, ADS.
I was presenting at a user group the other day, and we were talking about Azure Data Studio, and there was this one attendee was like, "Yeah, I still haven't checked out Azure Data Studio. I really need to take a look at that." I was like, "Seriously, at this point, I'm still using it, and we'll probably use it beyond February, to be quite honest, even though it's not support. I mean, it doesn't stop working
Yeah,
automatically and all that, but at the same time, I do understand that it has an best before date.
yeah.
Anyways, let's not talk about ADS for today. We should have a special episode on that in February. I'm going to call it the Goodbye ADS episode. So I'm
Ciao.
going to I'm going to create another random text table, which has a random text column in Watcher Max and an embeddings column. And then I'm just going to use my Olama again. So my Mistral model specifically, which I'm prompting with write me a 2-page essay on the airspeed velocity of unladen swallows, just so I get some text to work with.
Okay.
Because I figured rather than just grabbing stuff from an existing API or so, we'll just do something super random here.
So if you're of a certain age, you get this joke. But also,
There's
if you're of that similar age, you're probably using SQL Server.
there's that. Then again, it also shows me how dangerous AI can be, because in said demo at that user group, I was using a similar demo on that,
Mm-hmm.
and Mistral was telling me that this quote originates from Alice in Wonderland, and I'm pretty sure this is not the case. But then again, I didn't do my proper research yet, so the jury is still out on it. Cool.
But in
Anyways,
similarity search, huh?
that there is zero similarity between Alice in Wonderland and the Holy Grail. That's what I'm going to tell you. So I created my embeddings, 0.1 seconds, all good. Now we're getting to the first thing that has changed here, because, I mean, we've talked about a couple of things that have not changed except for the name of the version. Let's talk about some stuff that actually has changed. Cool.
Yes.
I want to create a vector index. And if you remember in the previous CTP, CTP 2.1, and CTP 2.0 as well, for that matter, you needed some trace flags for that to work. Nothing going on here. 0 trace flags. Let me show you something. Create vector index. Okay, it's not working.
No trace flags up your sleeve, Ben.
Well, I don't
Or
even
in your
have
current
proper
session.
sleeves. There's that. So
Tan
no
line
trace
there,
flag.
though. Ooh.
Correct. It is telling me it's not working. Maybe I need some trace flags. No, but I don't. So here's a very interesting new concept. What they introduced with the release candidate is something called a database scope configuration, where we can enable preview features. And that is a requirement, right? I mean, it's a very generic term, preview features, but it basically applies to vector index and one more feature that we're going to see later in this demo. So it basically covers 2 things at this point, which are both the AI thingies. So that's what it does. It doesn't set any trace flags. So if I would go up here and do a trace status again, it wouldn't show me anything. So technically a different concept, but it is still something very actively that you do to enable it.
So Ben, let's be very precise. So for this here, is it the vector index that's behind this preview feature, or is it vector search as a whole? Is it the vector data type? Which parts of this are behind
It
preview
is the
feature?
vector index,
Okay.
and it is one more feature that we're going to take a look at the end of this demo that we
Okay.
haven't talked about at all because it is brand new in this release candidate.
Very cool.
Yes. But let's talk about that concept for a bit, because I think that is a very interesting way of solving things. Because 2 things. First of all, it is a very explicit statement. It's not something that you execute by mistake, like, oh, somebody mistakenly ran a query and enabled that feature. No, it is something that's not just happening. So you're actively enabling that feature. And at the same time, it is happening on a database, not an instance scope or something like that. So it is something that I, as a database developer, can do.
Right.
So some people will probably be like, well, isn't that the same thing like a trace flag? I'm going to maybe from what it does in the end, yes, but from who can do it and how you do it, no. So I think that's an actually very elegant way of generally solving something, and at the same time also making clear, hey, there's still some stuff in there that is in preview. There's still some, I mean, technically everything in SQL 2025 is still in preview. But if you look at REST
Well, now
APIs,
it's a release candidate, Ben.
preview release candidate. If you look at REST APIs, for example, I mean, they have been in Azure SQL for quite a while. So the entire syntax for that has been super, super stable. Whereas a lot of the other concepts, like the vector indexes, for example, they're new to the SQL world in general. So I think, especially with stuff still going on there, flagging it as such is a very transparent and yet, from my perspective, honestly, elegant way of solving that issue.
I just figured it's because they ran out of trace flag numbers. That's not why?
Uh, I mean,
Uh,
yes, but that's NDA, so.
Okay, okay. Oh man, I have to edit that out. No, I think Ben, I'm totally in alignment with your analysis here. When I learned about this, I think it takes that the I don't say burden, but it takes the scope of configuration from the DBA to the developer. So
Yep,
the developer makes this conscious choice to consume a preview feature in their configuration, right? And so
I agree.
clearly, yeah, I think
And
and
this
just
is a
reading,
developer-focused feature.
yeah,
So
developer edition. Uh, but
standard developer edition.
reading between the tea leaves, you think, well, all right, well, if they're investing in something like this, maybe this is an avenue to accelerate feature release in the future, right? No
Yep,
inside knowledge there other than, well, why would they build a whole mechanism to expose
yep.
new features if they weren't going to use it to expose new features, right? So I think, you might,
I see
I would
what you did
hope,
there.
uh-huh, I would hope to see some feature velocity increase because of something like this, right?
Like feature airspeed velocity.
Yes.
Nice. All right. So again, this is the new requirement for a vector index. So now we can create our vector index. There were a couple of previous other requirements for vector indexes. You need an integer column that is a primary key. So let's do that. And there is my vector index. The restriction of a vector index making a table read-only still exists. So that is still one of the biggest caveats that come with vector indexes, because otherwise, I mean,
Yep.
we've seen that demo where we were comparing logical reads and all that. So why would anybody in their right mind not use a vector index? Well, because they take a while to create, but they also make your table read only. So that's the much bigger issue. So while that is the case, consider that when when laying out your table designs and everything.
100%. I think, you know, if we look at, and I think we talked about this previously. I'm very sure we talked about this previously. If we look at what's happening inside a SQL Server, we're quite literally storing data in a different way, retrieving data
Yep,
in a different way. And so having guardrails around that, I think are actually admirable rather than forcing a feature that might be incomplete. So rather than say, oh, it's incomplete, it's read only. No, 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 no. It's an entirely new paradigm on how to store and retrieve data out inside of this relational database. And it's very analogous to what happened when column store was released, 15 years ago. The same thing, right? You quite literally were storing and retrieving data in a completely physically different way than before. And so,
yep,
they put guardrails around that and then expanded that feature very rapidly on that. And I get that having a read only index doesn't sound great, but just understand it's about building enterprise grade software and bringing that to market in the safest way possible, but still lighting up a very compelling feature.
agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
All right, I promised you another new feature, right? I haven't delivered on that promise yet, so let me fix that. So like I said, we have that random text in here. And I mean, this one isn't horribly long. And it is also the advantage that it's on one specific topic. But one of the issues that I've also seen in the actual field, so we're not only talking about airspeed velocities and stuff, is that people put way too much into their embeddings.
Yes.
Way too much I mean, the entire point of an embedding is to describe content and context in a numerical way. And if you just put too much in that, the context gets lost. I mean, in theory, you could take 1,000 pages of text and put that into a single embedding. Then you ask a question, unless that entire 1,000 pages of text are really constantly talking about the same topic, it's going to be very hard to find something that is actually near that because it's all over the place.
I mean, I repeat myself a lot, Ben. So
I
I
know.
would only need one embedding, right? Yeah.
I know. So my initial recommendation would be, whenever you can, actually break your 1,000 pages into something meaningful. This could be chapters, it could be paragraphs and all that. Like when you're, for example, importing and converting a PDF. If you have ways of doing that, do it that way. Break it into something logical. That would be perfect. But we don't always have that information. Now we could go ahead and use AI or whatnot to try to do that. But that's probably going to fail or it's going to be super compute intensive. And for those cases where we cannot bring it into logical chunks ourselves, because we do not have that metadata information, for example, or it's not coming in a structured way that allows us to do that, there is a new function which is called AI generate chunks. So we can take our random text, put it into a chunk, which basically just means we're going to take that text and split it into different parts, into different chunks. We're going to give it a size of, for example, 150 characters. And then we're doing that with a cross apply. So by doing that, it just breaks my entire text of 2,851 characters. Well, there's actually 8 more rows, so it's more than that. So it breaks my entire text into chunks of 150 characters. Now we could say, well, that's 150 is a little low, so maybe we do 500, and it's just going to affect the number of chunks. As we can see, it was 28 before, now it's 9. It turns my content into something that is more easily to digest for the embeddings, and therefore will highly increase the chance of my embedding actually finding what I'm looking for.
Yeah, adding some precision or
Yeah,
fidelity to the search. Yeah. That is
So,
also super cool. Can you imagine having to write that code on your own? How much code that would
and
take?
that's the thing.
So
Um, if you don't have to, don't rely on it, because if you have some like proper metadata, that's just going to tell you, okay, I got a paragraph here about cats and here a paragraph about dogs and here about what. Perfect, use that. But in many cases, you will not get data structured in that way. And then this is a very elegant, very simple, and very well performing way as well. So you would now go ahead, you could take that chunk, to the generate AI embeddings thingy on it, and then you have an embedding for every single chunk. Then you do your vector search or your vector distance on that specific embedding. And then you could still link back to the original record, because you'd be like, well, I'm still trying to find an entire book. Or you could, for example, say, well, I'm looking for a cat. And then you take you order it by the number of hits, by the number of embeddings that were very close to it. So there's tons of ways on how this can actually improve your search results and search quality.
I'm never looking for a cat, Ben. I'm a dog person.
I can see that, which
Yeah.
is why you could also do a "we're not," and then you exclude all the cats.
No offense to our cat friends out there. I respect cats equally.
There's that.
Yeah.
There's that. There's that. Let's wrap this up before we're digging our hole here. That
We just lost a whole bunch of viewers after the cat.
now that the cat is out of the bag or hole or whatever, so we do have a release candidate, but there's still changes going on. I mean, kind of funny. We kind of started with, well, we have a release candidate, so things are going to be stable now. So let us show you a feature that hasn't been around before.
Right. Not a lot's
But
going to change, but it does.
and at the same time, this clearly had the headline, well, you're enabling a preview feature, which kind of gives away, well, if something is in preview, it's probably not going to be super well. I could easily see how the syntax doesn't change anymore, or only lightly,
Hmm.
on those things. But anything that's happening, well, in the back
Ben,
end,
we
a
recorded
lot of things
demos.
will
There's a
change.
guarantee that the syntax is going to change
Of
because we
course.
recorded demos. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Microsoft has a way of actually changing that syntax after I installed that, so it's even not going to work on my machine anymore. They don't. They
Or just let
don't.
me, or just let me have access to your machine before your
Yeah,
demo.
no, I've been there.
Done that.
Demoing with you is why I have trust issues. So we have a release candidate, new way of introducing those preview features. Vector indexes are now enabled in a slightly different way. Otherwise, they work the way we already introduced them. And then there's the new AI generate chunks function that can be super helpful when it comes to getting more precision and making your raw data more digestible and usable for embeddings. Pretty cool,
Very
right?
cool.
Very cool.
See.
See. And with that, I would say, let's play the music.
Let's play the music, man.